Hello, I'm Dr. William Brogdon. I'm a research entomologist with the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. My colleagues and I have created an easy-to-use, rapid, and economic tool for information, you will be able to readily identify resistance mechanisms. You can use this same CDC bottle bioassay with added synergists, substances known to enhance the activity of the insecticide, and or use biochemical or molecular methods in order to decide which insecticide will provide optimal vector control. This assay may also be used to compare results with the World Health Organization's paper-based bioassay. We recommend you plan for resistance surveillance before choosing any insecticide, and that you include routine surveillance with this bioassay at least once a year. When your efforts are seasonal, we recommend using it at the beginning and end of each season. Some countries have found it useful to centralize their preparation of bottles and surveillance. A central reference laboratory can provide support for quality assurance, training, procurement, species identification, enzymatic assays, and molecular research. If you would like to order CDC bottle bioassay kits, we've included information at the end of this video. We hope this video, as well as our guide, provides you with practical guidelines for performing this bottle assay and interpreting the results. Thank you.
The following are the materials required when using the CDC bottle bioassay. 250 milliliter Wheaton bottles with screw lids. Graduated disposable plastic pipettes that can measure 1 milliliter or micropipetters and tips. Aspirator apparatus for collecting mosquitoes. Container for transferring or holding mosquitoes. Bottles for stock solutions. Timer capable of counting seconds. Permanent markers for labeling bottles, cap, and pipettes. Masking tape for labeling bottles, caps, and pipettes. Disposable gloves. Sheets, pens, and pencils for data recording. Insecticide to be tested. Acetone or technical grade absolute ethanol. Mosquitoes for testing. You can find examples of diagnostic doses and diagnostic times on Table 1 in Section 3.1. The diagnostic dose is a dose of insecticide that kills 100% of susceptible mosquitoes within a given time. Those are the reference points against which all other results are compared. Resistance is assumed to be present if a significant portion of the test population survives the diagnostic dose at the diagnostic time. Please refer to Appendices 1 and 2 in the guide to address frequently asked questions regarding using the assay and calibration of diagnostic doses. When you open up a CDC bottle bioassay kit, you will encounter sachets of technical grade insecticide. Use those sachets of technical grade insecticide to make insecticide stock solutions. Dilute the appropriate amount of insecticide in acetone or technical grade ethanol. Examples of stock solutions for technical grade insecticides are located in Table 2 and Section 3.2 of the guide. An example of stock solution preparation can be found in Box 1. Female mosquitoes to be used in the bioassay can be collected as adults from the field or as adults of a known age reared from field larval collections. Use of mosquitoes that have emerged from eggs laid in the insectary is not recommended. If field-collected adults are used, their physiological status should be recorded on the result sheet. Female mosquitoes should be fed only with a 10% sugared solution the day before testing. It is recommended that a minimum of 100 mosquitoes, divided among 4 replicate bottles, should be tested for an insecticide at a given concentration. When it is not possible to collect this number of mosquitoes on a single day, results of multiple bioassays over a few days may be pooled to achieve the recommended sample size, 100 mosquitoes. In either case, each bioassay must include a control bottle with 10 to 25 mosquitoes. A. Wash the bottles with warm soapy water and rinse thoroughly with water at least 3 times. Tap water can be used for this step. B. Place bottles in an oven, 50 degrees centigrade, for 15 to 20 minutes or until they are thoroughly dry before using them. C. If there is no oven, leave bottles to dry completely at room temperature or in the sun with the caps off. In humid situations, bottles can be left to dry with caps off overnight or longer. D. To assure that the cleaning procedure is adequate, introduce some susceptible mosquitoes into a sample of recently washed and dried bottles. Mosquitoes should not die right away. If they do, repeat the washing and drying procedure. Since bottles are often reused, consider using a piece of masking tape on the bottles and caps for marking them instead of writing directly on the bottles and caps. This may facilitate the cleaning of the bottles after the bioassay is completed. Mark the other 4 bottles and caps with replicate number 1 through 4 and the bioassay date. If more than one type of insecticide or more than one concentration of the insecticide is being tested at the same time, also label the bottles and their caps with the insecticide name and concentration. Mark both the cap and the bottle so that the bottles are associated with their respective caps. This is vitally important since the inside of the entire bottle will be coated, including the inside of the cap. Make sure that bottles and caps are completely dry. Remove caps from the bottles. If using disposable pipettes, label one pipette as solvent only for the control bottle, and another pipette is insecticide solution for the test bottles. If more than one type of insecticide or more than one concentration of insecticide is being tested at the same time, make sure to label each pipette accordingly to avoid contamination. Add 1 milliliter of acetone or ethanol to the control bottle and put the cap back on tightly. Swirl the contents inside the bottle so that the bottom is coated. Invert the bottle and swirl to coat the inside of the cap. Tilt the bottle 45 degrees while rotating the bottle to assure the neck of the bottle is also treated. Place the bottle on its side for a moment to let the contents pool. Gently rotate while rocking the bottle gently so that the sides all the way around are coated. Remove the caps and continue rolling bottles on their side until all visible signs of the liquid are gone. Leave the bottle on its side with its respective cap. In the first test bottle, add a sufficient volume of the prepared insecticide stock solution to reach the desired diagnostic dose. For example, if, as it was suggested, the stock solution has the same concentration of insecticide per milliliter as a diagnostic dose, add 1 milliliter of stock solution to the bottle. Put the cap back on tightly. Repeat the process of coating for all the test bottles. Cover with something that will keep bottles and caps protected from light until completely dry. Drying time may vary depending on geographic location and surrounding environmental conditions. If bottles are not used right away, store bottles in a dark place, such as a drawer, with the caps off to avoid moisture buildup. When conducting these assays, be sure to use a filter on mouth aspirators to avoid inhaling mosquitoes or insect fragments. Blow gently to expel the mosquitoes into the bottles. If you blow too hard, the mosquitoes can be damaged by hitting the sides of the bottle and killed before the insecticide has a chance to do so. In addition, be careful not to touch the inside of the bottle with the aspirator, as this may contaminate the aspirator. A. Using an aspirator, introduce 10 to 25 mosquitoes into the control bottle. It is not necessary to count the mosquitoes. The exact number does not matter. B. Introduce 10 to 25 mosquitoes into each test bottle. Again, the exact number does not matter. C. When the last bottle is filled with mosquitoes, start the timer. Be sure to examine the bottles at time 0 and count the number of dead and/or live mosquitoes. Record your observations on a data recording form. An example of a data recording form is located in Appendix 3 in the guide. D. Record how many mosquitoes are dead or alive, whichever is easier to count, every 15 minutes until all are dead or up to 2 hours. E. Record these data on the data form. F. Mosquitoes flying at the end of the bioassay in the control bottle may need to be killed to get an accurate count. For the purposes of these assays, dead mosquitoes are mosquitoes that cannot stand. It helps to gently rotate the bottle while taking the count. Immobile mosquitoes that slide along the curvature of the bottle can be easily categorized as dead. It is easier to count the number of dead mosquitoes in the first readings of the bioassay, and it is easier to count the number of live mosquitoes when few remain alive. In the end, the percentage of dead mosquitoes at the diagnostic time, dead mosquitoes divided by total of mosquitoes in the assay, is the most important value in the graph. For more information on handling coated bottles, identification of mechanisms of resistance, validity of data, and interpretation of results, refer to sections 4.3 to 4.6 in the guide. For the purposes of these assays, follow WHO recommendations for assessing the significance of detected resistance. These recommendations are listed in box 5. Mosquitoes alive at the diagnostic time may represent mosquitoes resistant to the insecticide being tested. These mosquitoes may be transferred to a sleeved carton for further analysis. The following is a time-lapse video of susceptible Anopheles gambia mosquitoes subjected to a DDT-treated bottle using the diagnostic dose and a control bottle. Notice the effect of the insecticide when the mosquitoes are initially introduced to the treated bottle and at the diagnostic time compared to the control bottle. Although resistance data are often collected as part of vector control programs, this is not done as regularly as it should be in a true resistance surveillance effort. Surveillance requires the regular collection and interpretation of epidemiologic data to support changes in public health programs. It is important to consider the CDC bottle bioassay an instrument to collect information to support an insecticide resistance surveillance system. For more information on resistance surveillance and guiding principles, refer to section 5 of the guide. The CDC bottle bioassay, using bottles that were coated with a single insecticide, provides information on insecticide resistance to that particular insecticide in adult arthropods. These data may provide early evidence that an insecticide is losing its effectiveness. Once resistance is detected, or at least suspected, one must decide what to do next and which other compounds are likely to still be effective and not compromised by cross-resistance. This requires knowledge of the resistance mechanism in place, information usually acquired using either biochemical assays or molecular methods. A rapid and inexpensive alternative to assess resistance mechanisms is to use the CDC bottle bioassay with synergists. Synergists are enzyme inhibitors of insecticide detoxification enzymes. Synergists are available for the metabolic detoxification enzymes, esterases, oxidases, and glutathione S-transferases. Synergists act by abolishing the apparent resistance observed in the CDC bottle bioassay if a detoxification enzyme plays a role in that particular resistance mechanism. Data for resistant and susceptible populations are shown in Figure 10A. Once a synergist is used on the resistant population, one of 3 things might happen. Observe Figure 10B. A. Resistance to the insecticide is abolished. Time mortality line A, which suggests that the mechanism related to that synergist is playing a role in the insecticide resistance observed. B, resistance to the insecticide is partially abolished. Time mortality line B. This suggests that the mechanism related to that synergist is involved in the resistance, but is not the only mechanism involved in this particular case. C, resistance to the insecticide is unaffected. Time mortality line C. This indicates that the mechanism related to that synergist is not involved in the resistance. Commonly used synergists in conjunction with the CDC bottle bioassay. PBO, which inhibits oxidase activity. DEF, which inhibits esterase activity. EA, DM, and CF, which inhibit glutathione transferase activity. Testing mosquitoes with synergists is a two-step procedure. Mosquitoes are first exposed to the synergists for 1 hour and then tested for insecticide resistance using the CDC bottle bioassay. A schematic representation of performing a bioassay with synergists is shown in Figure 11. To use a bioassay with synergists, you need to prepare the synergist stock solution by diluting the appropriate amount of synergists and acetone or technical grade ethanol to be able to coat the bottles with the concentrations shown in Table 3. To make these stock solutions, use the same procedure used for making insecticide stock solutions in Section 3.2 of the guide. In brief, dilute the appropriate amount of synergist and acetone or technical grade ethanol. For example, to get a concentration of 400 micrograms per bottle of piperonal butoxide, dissolve 400 milligrams in enough acetone or absolute ethanol to make 1 liter of solution. Each 1 milliliter of this solution will contain 400 micrograms per bottle of piperonal butoxide. Mark one bottle and its cap as a synergist control bottle, which is a bottle without synergist. Mark a second bottle and its cap to be the synergist exposure bottle. Add 1 milliliter of acetone or ethanol to the synergist control bottle and put the cap on tightly. Add 1 milliliter of the synergist stock solution to the synergist exposure bottle and put the cap on tightly. Coat the bottles, remove the caps, and let the bottles dry as in Section 3.6. To run the CDC bottle bioassay with synergists, introduce equal number of mosquitoes into the synergist control bottle and into the synergist exposure bottle, about 125 mosquitoes in each bottle if enough are available. Keep the mosquitoes in bottles for 1 hour to allow the synergist to act. After 1 hour exposure is completed, transfer the mosquitoes to 2 holding cartons, one for the synergist control mosquitoes and another for the synergist exposed mosquitoes. This makes it easier to transfer mosquitoes into the insecticide-treated bottles. Transferring mosquitoes to holding cartons can be done several ways, depending upon the design of the holding carton. Prepare 2 test sets of bottles to run the CDC bottle bioassay following procedures outlined in Section 3.6. It may help to use different colors of tape in order to readily distinguish the 2 sets of test bottles. Perform the CDC bottle bioassay as in Section 4.2 using 1 set of insecticide-coated bottles, 1 control, and 4 test bottles for the synergist control mosquitoes, and another set, 1 control, and 4 test bottles for the synergist exposed mosquitoes. Continue to follow procedures outlined in Section 4.2 and compare the data of the 2 populations of test mosquitoes when the bioassay is completed. Section 6.1 and Figures 10A and 10B provide information on how to interpret the results of the CDC bottle bioassay using synergists. Resistance that cannot be attributed to one of the detoxification mechanisms after all synergists have been used is likely to be due to a target site mechanism, such as KDR, sodium channel mutation, or insensitive acetylcholinesterase.
Hello, I'm Bob Wirtz, Chief of the CDC Entomology Branch. The CDC Center for Global Health, Division of Parasitic Diseases and Malaria, Would like to thank the numerous organizations, agencies, scientists, and control personnel that have contributed to developing and implementing this method. We hope that the portable nature and availability of its components continue to make this method a robust and useful tool for monitoring insecticide resistance, even in the most remote regions where insect-borne diseases occur.
If your institution or program would like to order a bottle bioassay kit, which contains bottles, insecticide formulations, a manual, and instructional video, please contact CDC